In the warm embrace of a Sunday morning, the air was thick with the scent of fresh coffee and the soft rustle of hymnals being flipped open. Pastor Ralf Friedrichs stood at the pulpit, a figure of calm authority, his deep voice resonating like a comforting blanket over the congregation. The church was modest but welcoming, its wooden pews worn smooth by years of devotion, and sunlight streamed through stained glass, painting patches of color on the polished floor. As he began his sermon, Pastor Ralf posed a question that hung in the air like a question mark waiting for an answer. Are you still sacrificing the things that matter most on the altar of urgency? His gaze swept over the crowd, a mixture of familiar faces and new seekers, all searching for solace or perhaps revelation. With each word, he painted a vivid picture of lives entwined in a web of routine, where friends, spouses, children, and health were sacrificed at the altar of procrastination. Do you say things will be different tomorrow? He pressed, his eyes piercing through the veil of complacency. Among the congregation sat Dan, a man in his mid-30s, with tired eyes that betrayed the internal conflict brewing within him. He was a husband and father, yet the weight of unfulfilled promises and neglect clung to him like a shadow. He felt a knot tighten in his chest as the pastor's words washed over him, echoing truths he had long avoided. The illusory comfort of tomorrow felt like a distant dream, one he was perpetually chasing but never quite catching. As Pastor Ralf continued, he reminded them, today is yesterday's tomorrow. Are things different, or is it more of the same? The truth struck Dan with the force of revelation. His heart raced as he recalled the countless days spent prioritizing work over family, ambition over health. He had convinced himself that change was just around the corner. Yet he realized with a crushing clarity that nothing had transformed. He had only built a prison of his own making. The pastor's voice became a beacon of hope, urging the congregation to wake up from their slumber. If you're living the lie, things aren't the problem. You are, he declared. Dan felt a spark ignite within him, a flicker of determination to stop the cycle of negligence. He recalled a dear friend's lamentation. I see what you're saying, but I can't seem to break the pattern. Dan understood this pain all too well, the struggle of waking from the fog of indifference, like being blinded by harsh fluorescent lights after emerging from the comforting cloak of darkness. Pastor Ralph's words turned from admonition to encouragement, guiding them toward a path of truth. Begin truthing by thoughtfully uncovering, intentionally embracing, and gradually integrating your personal values. Dan's mind raced as he thought of his own neglected values, the laughter of his children, the embrace of his wife, the peace of health. He imagined sharing his struggles with a friend, perhaps even finding an accountability partner, someone to stand with him in the fight against the patterns that had defined his life for too long. Lastly, begin rejecting the values others impose on you by gradually and gently making life choices based on your personal values, the pastor urged, and Dan felt a tidal wave of resolve wash over him. As the service drew to a close, Pastor Ralph's final words lingered in the air, a gentle nudge toward the life Dan yearned for. The congregation stood, voices raised in a hymn that resonated with newfound purpose. With each note, Dan embraced the realization that change was not a distant tomorrow, but a choice he could make today. As he stepped outside, the sunlight felt warmer, the world more vibrant. He took a deep breath, the crisp air filling his lungs, and for the first time in a long while, he felt alive, ready to honor what truly mattered. The journey ahead would be challenging, but with each step, he was no longer a man shackled by yesterday's choices. He was a man stepping into his truth, ready to embrace the life he had almost forgotten, 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 almost